The first step, and maybe arguably the most important step, and I'll probably say that like 10 times throughout this video, is you don't need to script every single word of your video. For me, like, you do need to script the hook. Writing your hook, to me, is the next step. What are you trying to do when you sit down to write a hook?
The most important thing is audio is more important than video. Like, worry less about having a $3,000 camera, worry more about having a $100 microphone. How complicated do you want the editing to be? Would you rather have your editing be simple? Do you want it to be kind of medium? Do you want it to be complicated? Kind of keep in mind, like, how much work am I willing to put into this editing?
As you probably know, everybody these days wants to be a YouTuber. And I don't blame them. It's a great job. You get to be your own boss, own your own time, and all that kind of good stuff. But to be a YouTuber is not as easy as it looks. There's so many steps. Matter of fact, I have 11 steps here, all mapped out, that it takes to cover in order to release a good video. And each step, you need to know the best practices for each step in order for your video to actually get views. And even if you miss one of these steps, it could be the reason that your video just sits with 0 views or 1 view for days on end and just big waste of time. So in today's video, we're going to give you 11 steps that you should follow. And we're going to also give you all the best practices in each of those steps so that you can finally start getting views on YouTube. Let's go ahead and get right into it. All right, guys, welcome back to the Video Creator Podcast. My name is Augie Johnston. I'm here with my co-host, Grant Ball. And today we are talking about how to succeed on YouTube, how to grow on YouTube. There are a lot of steps. I mean, you can't just be good at talking on camera. You can't just be good at graphic design. You can't just be good at lighting. There's a lot of different things that go into making it on YouTube, especially in this competitive environment. And we're going to go ahead and dive into these 11 steps. And if you guys don't know, Grant is a YouTube consultant, a YouTube coach. He helps people, as well as myself, grow on YouTube. And so you guys are in luck. We're going to pick his brain. He's going to give us what he feels is the best practices. And me and him are going to go back and forth. Might be some arguments, some disagreements here. Because some of these things are, I guess, controversial in a way where some YouTube coaches will say, do this. And other YouTube coaches will say, never do that. So it'll be interesting to kind of get Grant's style and kind of what he works with, and then as well as my own style as well. So Grant, first of all, how you doing?
I'm doing all right, solid Thursday today, and actually just hopped off a consultation with a client. And so my brain is going. I'm feeling fresh and I'm warmed up.
Sweet. Love to get all your takes on this. We're going to go ahead and dive right in right now. The first step, and maybe arguably the most important step, and I'll probably say that like 10 times throughout this video, but is coming up with your topic. Right, your video topic. So what are you doing when you're kind of come up with a topic? What kind of is your style? What's your ideation process?
So it really depends. Like, if I'm running my own channel, then I tend to look at what's trending in my space. So, whether it's video games or anime, it's like, okay, did a new anime just come out that a lot of people are talking about? Then I'll want to talk about that. Or sometimes inspiration will grab me and I'll just think, okay, this game is really interesting. Maybe it's not trending or anything, but I'm so inspired by it that I feel like I can make a video that maximizes audience retention, and I'm going to make it anyway. And generally, like, as long as the inspiration is there, I can come up with the topic. So it's always a combination of inspiration and trends. So kind of keeping your ear to the ground about what's going on in your space. Are you in the finance space? Are you in the video game anime space? Are you in the spirituality space? It's always a matter of trends and inspiration.
Yeah, I think that's a good answer, because you do have to kind of understand your industry and have your ear to the street and see what's next. Because I remember when ChatGPT and AI kind of started becoming a thing, right? The smart YouTubers started creating a lot of content about that kind of stuff because it was getting clicked on and it was trending. And so, I mean, your industry might not be, AI. You might be a lawn mowing company creating content on YouTube, but you could still create a video like how to use AI as a landscaping company, stuff like that. And that video would be most likely to pop up maybe on the homepage and get clicks. Another kind of quick tip to come up with a topic is looking at what competitors are doing. right? You can go to anybody's channel, you can click on most popular video, and you'll see what's most popular, and then you can maybe come up with some topics that way too. Those are kind of my strategies, at least.
Right. And then another thing you can do is like sometimes things are trending, but it's a very broad topic. So you mentioned AI. So a client I worked with recently wanted to create an AI channel, an AI YouTube channel, and kind of make these little documentaries about different sections of the space or like different sort of doomsday scenarios that might happen. In the first video that actually did very well, it got the first video on this channel got 10,000 views, which like launching a video that organically gets 10,000 views is kind of unheard of. That video was called The Dangerous Rise of AI Girlfriends. And it's kind of like you take AI and then, well, people generally like beautiful women, or like it's this idea of kind of love and romance getting exported to technology is, I think it's always sort of relevant. So, you take the trend of AI and you think, what's something interesting I can talk about within this? And that was almost like a subjective call. It wasn't like objectively it was a good idea to make an AI channel, but subjectively it was like, oh, like, put a beautiful woman in the thumbnail with a speech bubble saying I love you, and then like it's that type of way of coming up with topics really works, of kind of start with the broad objective topic and then narrow it down to like what's something people are always interested in. And then I think the next video is on AI creating like super viruses, so there's something very like oh shit about that. It's there's just it's subjectively interesting within an objectively thriving space.
Yeah. And I think those kind of topics, like everyone's always trying to make more money. Everyone's always trying to improve their relationships, like that example, right? So you can kind of take those main kind of human needs and spin it in a way that is trending. So I think that's a great tip that you just laid out there, Grant. So, okay, we have our topic. Now we need to come up with the next part, which is the title, right? We need to create a title that is clickable. My example is that normally I'll come up with a topic and like you said, it's very broad. Like let's say I want to make a video about email marketing. Then I need to come and create a title that, or why you should use email marketing would be a better example. Then I need to come up with a very clickable title. What's your process for that?
Well, there's two aspects to making a clickable title. One is the algorithmic aspect, and one is the human readable aspect. So generally, you want to make sure your keywords are as close to the front of the title as possible. So YouTube takes the words that are close to the beginning of the title, and it takes them more seriously than the keywords at the end of the title. It takes all of them into account, but again, like if you can have the keyword in the front, then that's just a kind of basic idea of something you should be going for. So like the dangerous rise of AI girlfriends, I guess technically with that one, the AI girlfriends are the keywords and it's the last words in the title, but it's kind of a short title, so it's not that important, and it is very human readable. Like a human looks at that title and thinks, oh wow. So it's, you're always kind of skirting the line between human and robot here. And yeah, a good thing also is to ask a question, like how can I make $100,000 in 6 months? Or like a big thing with that is kind of having a big number in the title. So if you're in the finance space, you want to have like, if you have $100,000 in the title or $1 million, or even if you're talking about like mortgage rates or something like 0% mortgage rate, how to get a 0% mortgage rate. So you have like intriguing question, you have big number or like interesting number. Trying to fit things into this bucket really works well. And then also just using something like ChatGPT, you can have it spit out like, hey, give me 20 titles on a YouTube video about artificial intelligence creating a super virus or something. And I rarely use ChatGPT's titles as they are. It likes to like make super long titles or whatever, but kind of just using it to brainstorm and come up with, sometimes like combining two titles it makes and kind of adding some, adding my own flair to it, kind of all that. So yeah, big number, interesting question, ChatGPT, but not like overly relying on ChatGPT. And yeah, just those are the things I try to keep in mind. Can I ask the viewer something that is intriguing and answer that question in the video? That is probably one of the easiest ways to come up with a title.
Yeah, those are all great tips. And I think the part you mentioned about being searchable, right, with the keywords is a good one. I don't think it's mandatory. I mean, sometimes you are trying to rank for a search term, but sometimes your video topic is not something that you're even trying to rank for a keyword, maybe. So in that case, you can really just put the words together to create that curiosity. That's kind of the main thing, right? Okay, so we have our topic, our idea, our title. Now, thumbnail idea is kind of the next step. So what would you say is your kind of process for coming up with a thumbnail idea? We're just coming up with the idea right now.
So it always depends on the video itself, right? So if it's a face cam video, so like someone talking to the camera, I like to take a screenshot of the person from the video and incorporate that in the thumbnail somehow. So you generally want to have a human face in the thumbnail. So, put that on the left or the right. I would say, like, if you're already established, then you can put your face on the left because people tend to like notice things on the left more than things on the right. But if you're not established, which is, you probably aren't if you're watching something like this, you're trying to figure out how to get off the ground, put your face on the right if you are featured in the video, and then big text on the left about what's going on, and then maybe something descriptive in the middle. So if you're talking about the AI creating a super virus or something, can you put like virus in the center of the thumbnail with some good text and your face on the right? That's not a face cam video, but just for example. Big face, big text, descriptive image. That's like a really basic template of how to make a good thumbnail. You can use Photoshop. Canva is also really good. Like Photoshop, you can do a lot more, but Canva is like, you can make them really fast and they're pretty good. You're maybe not going to knock it out of the park, but it's going to look pretty good and it's not going to look bad. And that's important. You don't want your thumbnail to look bad. So yeah, Canva, very useful.
Yeah, Canva's great. There's a lot of tools, and you can even use, AI to generate some sort of imagery if you need for the background or for whatever. That seems to work well for a lot of people too. We could make an entire episode on thumbnails because it's such an important part. Remember, the first part is you want people to click on your video, and like I mentioned earlier, curiosity is the best way to invoke that click. So, okay, let's go ahead and move on because we got a lot of steps to cover here. So after you have your thumbnail idea, you're like, okay, I think the thumbnail is kind of going to look like this. You can move on to the next part, which is writing your hook. And I have this as its own step because for me, at least, you don't need to script every single word of your video. A lot of people do that, and that's a great strategy too. But for me, like, you do need to script the hook, but you don't need to script the whole thing maybe. So writing your hook to me is the next step. What are you trying to do when you sit down to write a hook, Grant?
Well, you're trying to tell the viewer what this video is going to be about and what they can expect from it and why they should care. And you want to fit that in to like 5 to 10 seconds. The shorter it is, the better. And you kind of have the classic Mr. Beast hook, right? Like, I dug a giant pit and drove a train into it, and then the train's and then it cuts right before the train's about to go into the pit. Like, that tells you what this video is going to be about, tells you what to expect, and it tells you why you should care, all in like 5 seconds. And obviously, he's got his own style, and trying to emulate that can make you into a corny bastard. So, but you just always want to make sure you're saying what this is going to be about, why they should care, what to expect. That's the hook. And then you want to be entertaining about it, right? So like I think, at least for me, I find hooks are easier if you're like trying to be funny. Or like if you don't mind incorporating comedy into the channel. So if you can think of a joke or something to put in there, if you can entertain somehow, that is really good. So like I watched a video recently it was like, I debunked evolutionary psychology, and the girl in the video had like a mustache, and she was like pretending to be kind of like a this colonial Englishman, right? She's like, hey girl, this is terrible English accent. She's like, hey girl, I noticed that the way you walk implies you don't have a tapeworm. And it's like, she's sort of like poking fun at the preposterousness of evolutionary psychology, or at least how she perceives it. But like, you get the vibe of the video immediately. You're not like explicitly telling them what the video is about, but also by joking about that, you're like, oh, this video is like, it's going to be kind of funny, but it's also going to take down evolutionary psychology somehow. So like, if you can do a silly bit like that, that works really well. Or you go with the Mr. Beast style, or you know, if your video is more informative, then it could be just more straightforward of like, but you don't want to be too informative. So like, I had a client recently who was talking about how Russia invading Ukraine, how it affected the Russian economy. So that's what the video was about. And originally the hook was like kind of dry. So what I suggested was they start with a retelling of events in a kind of dramatic way. So 2 years ago, soldiers march over the border in Ukraine and carnage, mayhem, blah, 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 like kind of recounting the events in a dramatic way. And that was a really good way to kind of hook people. And then we start talking about the economy soon. But yeah, it's like start with the drama, very soon get into like, but how did this affect the Russian economy? You know, you want to tell a story. You want to get people intrigued somehow. Start with some drama if you need to, but always make sure you're tying it back to what the video is going to be about really soon, which is what we did. Hopefully that makes sense. There was kind of a lot of information, but yeah, the hook is really important.
Yeah, it is. It is super important. That's why I recommend you write it out word for word. I heard somebody on a podcast the other day say, use like power words and stuff like that. Like, I don't know, like just be more flamboyant in your hook, be a little bit more outrageous with the things that you're saying to keep people watching, and that made sense to me. I mean, I think there's a part of me that's like, it's kind of annoying, but it does make sense. So, okay, we got our hook written, time to write the script. Now, what are you doing for that? What's the best practice there?
So, again, it depends. And when I wrote scripts for Treesicle or Bonsai Pop, my video game and anime channels, we would write the scripts out word for word pretty much. But then with Treesicle, at least, because it was all face cam, I would kind of like internalize the script as opposed to memorize it and then say it to the camera. So my recommendation is if your channel is kind of informational and you're doing face cam, make an outline. Don't write it word for word, but just make an outline of what you're going to talk about. And then that way you end up speaking from the heart instead of like reading from a teleprompter. And that's pretty much always more interesting for an audience to watch. People generally don't appreciate being read to, but they do appreciate being talked to, however, if you're doing like a video essay style, if sometimes you do need like a specific script. In that case, you start with the hook. We already talked about that. And then kind of once the hook is over, you kind of want to reset. Like the beginning of like the non-hook script, it's like if the hook is really fast-paced, the reset is like it slows it down. Like just give the audience like a little break. I know we're sort of coming out of the retention demon editing era of YouTube, I think, where you're just always like, and it never stops. Like my recommendation though with the script is like fast hook, slow it down, and then start speeding it back up. You kind of want these ebbs and flows in your script of pacing. And a lot of that's in the editing too, but like you can be aware of this as you're writing of like how fast am I going to be talking when I'm saying this? How fast is the editing going to be when we're editing this? Yeah, just keep pacing in mind. And it's so vague. Like there's so many topics, like how do you write a script? But that's kind of the basic outline of like, do you write an outline or do you write it word for word? Outlines are a lot faster. They allow you to speak from the heart more. But a script, if you need to be precise with your words, if you absolutely need to be precise with your words, then you can write a fleshed out script. And it tends to be easier to do that if you're not doing face cam. So if you're just doing voiceover, that tends to be a lot easier if you're doing that.
Yeah, because if you're doing face cam, you need that teleprompter. And then not only do you need that teleprompter, but you got to be able to read it naturally. And that's hard. It takes a lot of practice. A cool tip that I got recently from somebody as far as scripting is micro hooks. Like you might be pay off to put a couple little micro hooks throughout the script too that just keep them watching a little bit longer. They just got to kind of be natural though. You can't force those kind of things. But as you are writing your script, think, oh, is there a quick little one sentence that I could add here that would hook them back in for the kind of this next part that I'm talking about? I think that stuff's pretty valuable. And another kind of thing I heard Ali Abdaal say, who's a pretty big YouTuber, millions of subscribers, is that pretty much all of his videos are just lists. Like it's like you got your 3 bullet points, and then you got 3 bullet points under each of those bullet points, and there's your script. I mean, it's pretty simple. You can just talk about the first thing is this, maybe hit them with a micro hook, and then you go with the 3 bullet points underneath it, kind of supporting facts or supporting information. That's an easy way, but maybe a little bit boring, but it just kind of depends. Like you said, it all depends on the topic, on what you're talking about, on your channel, on your goal for the video. But the main thing for me is you got to be somewhat entertaining. I'm watching all these business things, and they're just like, some guys are just so boring, and there's no story, right? You don't have to be like outlandish like Mr. Beast and all that, but people like to listen to stories. I do. You want to hear the ending, and that keeps people watching. And the biggest metrics are that click-through rate, the watch time on that video, how much total minutes you're getting on that video, and then the average view duration. So those are the 3 things you're shooting for on every video. So, all right, we got it all scripted out. The next step is to film it, right? So what are some best practices? I guess I always like to talk about fundamentals. What are the fundamentals when it comes to filming?
Well, the most important thing is audio is more important than video. And I think that that kind of comes from the world of film, which I've never been super involved in, but that's true. Some say film is 2/3 audio, 1/3 video. So make sure your sound quality is good. Worry less about having a $3,000 camera, worry more about having a $100 microphone in a room that is reasonably soundproofed, or having a good quality shotgun microphone if you're going to be, going out and about. Make sure you have a wind filter if it's windy. Kind of keep things like that in mind. So focus on the audio more than the video, which I think to a lot of people is surprising, but just keep that in mind. Another thing is, make sure your lighting is good. Like if you're filming on a set, you generally want a key light and a fill light. So the key light lights your face more on one side, and then the fill light kind of lights it a little less, and that creates kind of a feeling of depth when they're looking at you, and that makes it feel natural. So the lighting is good there. And then also, what kind of video are you trying to make? Are you making a video essay? So I think with video essays, like say ContraPoints or this girl who debunked evolutionary psychology, there's always kind of I think there's something to be said for switching it up. So maybe the first third of the video, you have one kind of set. You're wearing one costume or whatever, one set of clothes, but you're talking about point number 1. And then the second third of the video starts. Then you kind of switch it up. Now you're on a different set. Now you're wearing different clothes. Now, things are different. You can really affect the pacing of a video just by changing the background and what's happening. If you're kind of sitting in front of the same thing the whole time, then it could make the video feel stale. So if you are doing that kind of talking to a camera type of video, if it's going to be a longer video, consider switching it up and kind of getting creative with it, with what you're wearing, what you're sitting in front of. And then, if you're doing a vlog, things to keep in mind with filming is, I would say the more locations you go to, generally the better. There was kind of that trend. This was a few years ago. I think it got kind of corny, but I think spiritually there's something to be said for this, where the person talking would say one sentence, but they would say each word in a different location. So the first one, they'd be in their room, they'd say I, and then the second word they'd be in the park and it'd be am. The third word they'd be, I don't know, on the sidewalk somewhere, starting a YouTube channel. But that's an extreme version of this. But kind of the more places you go to, the more things you do, the faster paced the video feels. So again, YouTube is very audience retention heavy. So if you can, if you can change it up as much as possible, then I think you're going to see good results. And just be aware that, if you're in one place the whole time, doing one thing the whole time, in only talking in one tone of voice the whole time, it's going to get boring. So just try to make the video feel like a bit of a roller coaster if you can, in any way you can, whether that's visually, audio, whatever. It's just change it up.
Yeah, I saw a good example of that today. I clicked on a video and it was just someone in their house, and they changed kind of the angles and the different kind of backgrounds, different sets. And man, that thing flowed really well. And I've seen that a couple times. I remember this young kid, he must have been like 17 years old or something, in his bedroom. All of his videos were just in his bedroom, as a 17-year-old kid would. It's not like their parents are going to let you set up a studio in the living room or anything. But he would change angles, and like he would have like 7 different angles just in his bedroom. And his videos were engaging, and it worked well. So I think there's a lot of ways to do that. So I think that's a great tip. I mean, we could talk a lot about filming as well. I mean, the lighting, the audio, the framing, that's where it's the frame, right? Like what is actually being framed. Those are all super important things. But let's go ahead and talk about maybe another super important part, which is the edit. So you got it all filmed now, and now you're taking it into the edit. Is there any tips for people listening on what they should be doing in their edit?
So pacing is the biggest thing. And we talked about that some in like the scripting, but a lot of the pacing also comes with the editing. You might find in the script, like maybe the script you've written, you think it's great, but then when you kind of bring it in and you start adding the visuals, you might be like, I feel like I could just delete this whole paragraph. Or like sometimes it feels more boring than you thought it would, and you're kind of second guessing. Like you can edit the script in the editing process. You can make the pacing faster. You can make it slower. Don't be married to the idea you had in your head while you were writing it as you're editing it. Like to me, editing is like almost a part of the script writing process, in the sense of like sometimes you end up deleting things because you're like, this actually feels a lot more redundant now that I'm watching it as something that's kind of close to the final version. You might find you explained the same point like 3 times, and so you delete one of the times that you explained it. And then sometimes you find you can add things. So like maybe you didn't explain a point enough, and then you kind of end up refilming yourself. Hey guys, just wanted to clarify real quick that what I talked about there actually X, Y, and Z. So keep that in mind. You can kind of always refilm things really quickly because it's totally fine to be sort of raw like that on YouTube. And then, yeah, editing, it's like, how complicated do you want the editing to be? You can have editing that takes a long time, it's really engaging, but that's a lot of work. So maybe, would you rather have your editing be simple? Do you want it to be kind of medium? Do you want it to be complicated? Kind of keep in mind, like, how much work am I willing to put into this editing? How many stock videos do I want to hunt and search for and drag in? How many Google images do I want to find and drag in here? Like, what is my attention span going to allow for? And try to work within that. Don't like kill yourself with the editing if you hate doing it. Some people love editing, in which case, I don't know, go to town, go bananas. And yeah, again, so editing is basically part of the script writing process, in my opinion. And you can change the pacing a lot. Sometimes you can kind of like add breadth to the video, add space to the video, whereas in the script there wasn't any. It's just be aware of how the video has now changed now that you have recorded everything and now that you're putting everything together. It's going to feel different than it looked in your head, and that's okay.
Yeah. Editing is a huge part of it. I mean, I think it's one of the kind of the pillars of releasing a video. If we say like coming up with the topic's the most important part, scripting is an important part. Really all these steps are important, but editing is definitely one of the most. And you mentioned, some people like it, some people hate it. And that's a good time to plug vidchops.com. If you do hate editing, we can help you with your editing at vidchops.com. We'll help you add an expert video editor to your team in just a few clicks. And kind of one thing I wanted to add to this conversation as far as editing and the stuff that we do at VidChops, and kind of the reason I'm plugging this, we have like a checklist, right? So when you're going to edit a video, you should kind of go through, and your first minute minute of the video, and this is kind of our style, is we want it to be a little bit more highly edited than the rest of the video because of the hook, right? We want to make sure that people are going to stick around. So we're doing what we can in the edit. So that's the first thing on the checklist is editing a good hook. And here's just a list of all the other things: background music, sound effects, text titles, zoom ins, punch ins, whatever you want to call them, color correction, color grading, pop-up graphics, call to action graphics, stock footage, full screen titles, transitions, and end card. So those are kind of all the things that you should be looking to incorporate into your edit. But at the same time, there is a new trend kind of going on right now where videos aren't being edited very much at all. You know, there's people having success with just recording on their iPhone and uploading straight there. I think those are a little bit more of the exception, but it is coming back a little bit. And if you are going to do minimal editing, then you have to be very authentic. You have to be a very good storyteller. You have to keep people engaged with really the words that are coming out of your mouth, more so than anything else. So, all right, let's move this conversation on. We now have the video fully edited. It's time to design our thumbnail. So you mentioned Canva. We already talked about coming up kind of with thumbnail ideas. We have our idea. You personally, Grant, what do you use to design your thumbnails?
I use Photoshop. And the reason I use Photoshop as opposed to Canva is you can just do a lot more. Like, you're kind of creating things from scratch, and it takes longer. It's like Canva, you can make a good thumbnail in like 10 minutes, but Photoshop, you can make a fantastic thumbnail in 1 to 3 hours. Sometimes it might take longer, but it's kind of like you sort of almost have to decide with yourself. You got to make a deal with yourself. How long am I willing to spend on a thumbnail? Because you can spend 10 hours on a thumbnail. In the last 3 hours, you made it like 2% better. But yeah, I use Photoshop. It's a good program.
You ever use the generative fill AI tool they have there?
I do sometimes if there's like a really good background I want to use, but there's like, I don't know, some guy that's just in the way, I can remove him and then use the background. And yeah, those kind of AI tools are really helpful. I think they call them AI tools now, but they were there before the AI boom, and then they just sort of remarketed them as AI. But anyway, yes, they're great.
And what about the faces? You said earlier that a lot of times you want to have like a big face on your thumbnail. And if you open up YouTube, you're going to see that a lot, right? And most of those faces have it's not quite a filter, but it's that Mr. Beast look where it almost makes you look cartoonish, kind of very smooth skin. Do you normally use that or no?
I do. And so what that is, that's an AI upscaler generally. The one I generally use is called Rimini.ai, I think. It's like a website, and it's a subscription, which is annoying. It's like $7 a week or something for the base thing. Adobe Lightroom has an AI upscaler that I have not used yet, but yeah, just because I was doing client work, it felt like it was useful to use that. But yeah, the AI upscaler that's what adds the effect that you're talking about generally. So it takes us, they probably use like a screenshot from a video or a pre-shot photo or something, and then it ups the resolution, so it kind of like smooths everything out. And it usually adds a lot of like vibrancy and this sort of like pre-made algorithm. But you can also do the raw camera filter tool in Photoshop, and you can really mess with a lot of those values of the brightness, the contrast, the vibrancy, the saturation, you can kind of recreate that manually with the raw camera filter in Photoshop. But yeah, you can just use a tool like Rimini to kind of do it all at once, and it's way less work and kind of keeps your thumbnail from looking all pixelated. Yeah, that is a big thing too, is like you don't want your thumbnail to look pixelated unless that's kind of like part of your vibe, if you have like a meme channel or something. But yeah, if you can get an AI upscaler, I think that's going to add a lot of quality and polish to your thumbnails. So I would recommend that. As kind of like, I always just run it through last. Like, I create the thumbnail and then drag it into the upscaler, and then it just kind of like makes everything look better, and then it's done.
Yeah, it's crazy. I know quite a few of those upscaler tools, and man, those things are all expensive. I don't know if it's like it takes a lot of server juice or whatever to run those things or what, but man, those things are pretty pricey. But okay. Last thing about thumbnails is, keep in mind that you're trying to earn the click. So your thumbnail and your title should tell a story. They should create curiosity, and earn you the click. So keep that in mind when you're designing thumbnails. So, all right, we're almost to the end here. We got a few more things, because now we have the video edited. It's all good to go. The thumbnail's been designed. Now we need to optimize it. Optimize meaning we need to upload it to YouTube, and we need to get everything set up so that it can succeed on YouTube. Some of those things are, uploading the thumbnail, putting the title in, creating your description, your tags, adding your end card. Is there anything else, Grant, that I'm missing, or any kind of tricks you might use in that step of the process?
Just like making sure you're using the triple or quadruple keyword rule, same keywords in title, tags, description, hashtags. Just like make sure, like, don't half-ass it, but yeah, make sure you're adding the tags in the hashtags, and kind of be aware of like when you're making hashtags, of how I always try to have like a super popular hashtag, a medium popular hashtag, and a lightly popular hashtag, and then you're kind of covering all the bases. And so yeah, those are kind of the basic things I like to keep in mind. And if you have a tool like vidIQ, it can suggest keywords and stuff and tags to use. Yeah, that's probably like the easiest part of the process. And then as far as like end card, like I always just like to use best for viewer. So if I wouldn't recommend having like a subscribe button as an end card. I think like the subscribe button's always below your video, so don't do that. Just have like a video that people can click on, and I think best for viewer is generally good. And then having one other video that you choose yourself. Maybe you just feel like it's the most relevant to the video. If you have a video about, I don't know, Ethereum, the cryptocurrency, and then you had some other video about Ethereum, the cryptocurrency, then you want to link that video in the end card too. Yeah, just like kind of be aware of all those things. Yeah, use a tool like vidIQ, link videos in the end card, not a subscribe button. And yeah, triple or quadruple keyword rule. Make sure the same keywords in the hashtags and everything. Yeah.
Nice. And what about the description? You mentioned to have the keyword in the description or whatever, but are you putting links to other videos in there? Are you putting links to your Instagram, affiliate offers? What are you doing in there?
All the above. Like, so the top of your description should essentially be used for SEO purposes. Like, it should be a description of the video, but like the first 3 lines of the description are what YouTube uses to decide. Like, it looks at those keywords and it takes those into account the most. So like, and then below your kind of initial paragraph description of what this video is about, where you try to use as many keywords as possible. Below that, put all the above. So put your affiliate links, put your links to social media, link to other videos that you maybe mentioned in the video. You may as well just put everything there, because people scroll down to your description and they're kind of they're all going to be looking for different things. Some people are going to want to watch the video that you mentioned, so put it in the description. Some people are going to want to buy the thing that you talked about, put it in the description. Some people are going to want to follow you on social media, put it in the description. It's just kind of like an archive of everything you talked about in the video. So put it all, but just make sure the first few lines are for SEO purposes.
Yeah, and all those links are a great way to grow your other platforms. Let's say you have a Facebook group, you put a link there. I remember I had a Facebook group for my basketball training YouTube channel, and we put that link in the description. Boy, that group was growing quick, 20,000 members pretty quickly. And, if you're trying to make money, right, that's where you put your link to your money website, where you're trying to build a lead or you're trying to get somebody to purchase something. But I will say that if your only goal, maybe at the time, your main goal is to grow on YouTube, and that's what you want to do. You don't care about your Instagram. You don't care about your money website. You're just looking to optimize for YouTube growth. My recommendation is to not put your Facebook group. Do not put your Instagram. Put links to other YouTube videos that are relevant, that are on your channel, and drive all your clicks there, because that's going to help keep people on the platform. It's going to help keep people watching more of your videos, get you more watch time. So that's just kind of one thing, because I know YouTube doesn't like it so much when people watch a video, then click off and go to a different platform. I don't think that's going to like put a big strike on that video or anything like that. But like, I know one guy, Brian G. Johnson, it seems like he's a YouTube coach himself. And it seems like he's always trying to get somebody to watch another one of his videos, and create that binge cycle. So I think like if you want to fully optimize, that might be the way to do it. Although it's not super practical due to the fact that people are trying to get clicks to their website and they want to grow their Instagram and all that too. But there was a time where I was like, man, am I not growing because I'm sending everybody off YouTube in every single video at the end and in every single link in my description? I don't know. There was a time where I kind of changed it up and I don't have any results or anything, but I don't know. What do you think about that?
I think, if you have a website where you're trying to drive traffic, you kind of want to do a little here, a little there. Like, you want to make sure you're maintaining the health of the YouTube channel. Maybe like every other video, you pitch the website. Or maybe like you only pitch the website in certain situations. Like maybe at the end of every video, you only pitch a video, like you try to get somebody to watch another video. But during the video, kind of in the middle, you mention your website, you talk about it, and you say it's in the description, and then people can go down there and click if they want. Because yeah, I do think like ultimately the health of your YouTube channel is the most important, because if your YouTube channel isn't healthy, then nobody's going to go to your website anyway. So just kind of like mention the website, talk about it, let people know it's in the description. But I would say, you want to prioritize people watching videos more than going to your website, just because that's foundational to people knowing your website even exists anyway, right?
Yeah, totally. Okay, so the last step in this process, right? We got it optimized, we hit the publish, it's out there. And I added this step because I think it is an important step, but I think it's a step that's a little bit controversial. And the step is to promote your YouTube video, meaning share it, on Reddit in some communities, or email it out to your email list. Now, the reason this is controversial is because you don't want to drive people to your YouTube video that are going to watch 2 seconds and then click away. Like if they're just not interested in that topic, right? So maybe you're like, oh, look, I'm going to send this to all the people that I'm friends with in this other group that has nothing to do with the topic of my video. That could maybe potentially hurt your video. But I think sending it to your email list is a good move. What do you do to promote, or what's kind of your opinion on all that?
I mean, I always support just organic growth and growing a YouTube channel organically. Because yeah, like you said, you want to be really careful about showing people your video that are only going to watch 2 seconds of it, because you're going to kill the video. One thing I've seen clients do, and they'll do this before they come to me, is they'll run ads for their YouTube channel. And generally that kills a channel, because if people are going to your channel just because of an ad, yeah, you might get some subscribers. They're like, oh, this is kind of interesting. But they sort of subconsciously subscribed. They didn't really care. They just kind of got this ad. It was kind of interesting. And then you kind of end up with all this dead weight. So I rarely recommend running ads on a YouTube channel. Or for your YouTube channel. The only exception is like if you have a really good trailer and you really want to run an ad, like link people to the channel itself. Don't link people to a specific video, because then they can kind of look at the channel, decide if they want to click something or not, and then that filters out the people who aren't actually that interested. But yeah, generally I just recommend organic growth. Like, you can promote from, if you have like a big Instagram following, then what I recommend doing, if you have a big following on another platform and you're trying to transfer them to YouTube, you want to make like at least 3 videos, have kind of like a backlog when you first launch the channel, and then say, hey, Instagram followers, go check out my new YouTube channel. There's 3 videos there. They can binge watch all of them. Then they know you're serious too. When you only post 1 video to start, people are like, is he going to actually do this? Like, is he going to follow through? But yeah, like pitch the channel itself. Don't necessarily pitch a specific video unless you're absolutely sure that this video is going to like hit the nail on the head with the audience. And yeah, launch with at least 3 videos. And as far as like posting to Facebook or Reddit, I mean, with the first video that did well on my channel, Treesicle, we actually got our first views from Reddit, and somehow that actually worked. I have never seen it work since. So again, I just think organic is the way to go. Just keep making videos. Don't run ads. Like, all of it is very dangerous. If you do decide to do that, I would recommend taking the advice I gave you. Be cautious. Be very cautious. Organic is the way to go. It's the tried and true. But you got to be patient.
Yeah, and it's hard too, because when you're first starting out, right, you publish a video and the algorithm's not just going to push you out there a ton unless it's a great video like your client had the other day. It is kind of tempting to share it around and put it in a Reddit group or whatever. But I think my advice is just make sure that wherever you're putting it, the people there could possibly and most likely would enjoy that video. Like if you have an email list of people that you know who they are and you know they've watched maybe some of your past videos, and the reason they're on your email list is because first they were a subscriber, then they clicked your link, and then they entered their email. Now they're on your list. Like, yeah, email it out to them. I think that's a great move to get them back on your channel, repeat viewers and stuff like that. But yeah, I've made this mistake. I hate to say it. I've done both. I've ran ads and gotten, really 2-cent clicks. I'm getting people to view my videos for 2 cents. And I don't know if it helped. It was turning into some subscribers and stuff too. But in the end, it's like, was it even really helpful? It might have been hurtful, so it's hard. I would say if you are just starting, share it to somewhere where people are going to enjoy it, because you need that initial kind of bump to get going, right? I mean, you got 0 subscribers, you got 0 everything. You got to get some sort of bump to get people onto your channel, but you just got to be careful.
Yeah, I think one last thing to note as far as getting the initial bump, YouTube recently has been promoting tiny channels. I'll see a lot of videos with like 50 views, of maybe 100 views, 300 views. I think YouTube is aware of that issue. Like they do want, if you're making good videos, even if you have 0 subscribers, I think it's in YouTube's interest to show you that video if it's really good. So, I think the bump will come, and you're more likely to shoot yourself in the foot by trying to take a shortcut than you are just by consistently making videos organically and improving as you go. That's my take. I think it's possible to do the ad thing right, but 99% of the time I see it being done wrong. And I don't think it's worth it.
Ads in general, I think, are always really tough, because people click on an ad knowing it's an ad. It's just starting off, your impression starting off there is just not good, and it just doesn't work out. It doesn't. Even when you're trying to make a sale and you're running ads, like, yeah, it does work. You can convert and make money doing that. Of course, that's why they exist. But those clicks are never as great of a click as it would be just organically.
Yeah, ads are for selling something. YouTube is for entertaining people. That's my take. And some people use YouTube channels to drive traffic to their website. That's kind of their goal. But ultimately, you still need to keep people interested and entertained in the videos you're doing. And if somebody's coming from an ad, like you said, you're kind of starting from this weird place of like, they know you paid to get this in front of them, and they're already like skeptical of you, is really what it comes down to. And when you're trying to entertain and build trust, skepticism isn't great. Whereas if you run an ad to like get people to your website, I think that's fine. That is kind of more what ads are for. Just be careful with that. Organic is the way to go, in my opinion.
Yeah, no, I agree. So, all right, there it is, you guys. There is the process. I told you it's a longer process than you think if you want to do it right. Now, obviously, you can do it a lot faster and just kind of freestyle things, but this is the process you want to follow if you want to grow on YouTube. And if you're watching this on YouTube, please hit the subscribe button. We truly appreciate it. And if you're listening to the audio version, then you can subscribe or follow us on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, wherever you're listening. And thank you guys so much for listening, and we will catch you in the next episode.
Bye, everyone.